Hi, this is Alex at Ithaca Cybersecurity, and on this week's edition of Profit Insights, you're in for a real treat. We're going to talk about the 80-20 principle, and we're going to talk about Parkinson's law. So the two fundamental principles that, in my opinion, distill all kind of human progress, the very essence indeed. So this is taken from an article that was written by myself in March of 2025, and perhaps the opening paragraph with £6 for a pint of beer might date that slightly, but as I say, with just 703 words, this is an absolute corker. So please do enjoy and let me know your thoughts and any practical application you've had out of it in the comments. That'd be appreciated. We open with a quote from Scott Galloway. Time is our most precious currency, the one asset that we're all given at birth. So, as entrepreneur Scott Galloway observes, when money exchanges hands, what we're actually trading is each other's time. Now, consider this. I walk into my local pub and I spend £6 on a beer, and in doing so, I exchange the £6 I earned through selling my time for the time spent by the farmers growing the ingredients, the brewers obviously crafting the beer, and the logistics teams then delivering that to that landlord serving me. So how much did that beer actually cost me? Well, in this scenario, it's around 3.5 minutes of my life. So if I earn £250,000 per annum and I work 50 hours a week to get that £250,000, then my hourly rate is approximately £96. So 250,000, divide that by 52 weeks, divide that by 50 hours. So could I create my own beer in 3.5 minutes? Probably not. It might take me years to produce even a very, very poor imitation. So why would I try? So that's the argument here, that we've got to focus on our time, perhaps more so than our bottom line, on our infinite numeric system that is, of course, money and finance. So the value of focused mind. Now, when we leverage our time effectively, we focus on the few things that we do exceptionally well, things that others can't do. And the more we concentrate on these strengths, the better we become. As the gap widens between our abilities and others, the more valuable our time becomes. Now, this article is titled How to Achieve More with Less. But to truly achieve more with less, first of all, we need to value our time above everything else. And ancient civilizations actually understood this perhaps a little better than most of us do today. The common graffiti in ancient Rome, as you'll probably see from The Life of Brian, is memento mori. So remember, you must die. Common graffiti, and a stark reminder, of course, of our finite existence. Many believe money is scarce. This is nonsense. It is actually plentiful. It is, as I say, infinite. Because, of course, if money was actually scarce, now I'm not talking about cryptocurrency, of course, or Bitcoin, but the pounds, the dollars, the central government controlled currency. If this were true, if it was actually scarce, governments wouldn't keep devaluing currency, and inflation, of course, would reverse because there would be a finite supply. So we'd have deflation. Time, however, is, of course, genuinely limited. And the unnecessary busyness of modern life, the scenario I've just given, working 50 plus hours a week, accumulating more and more possessions, more liabilities critically. We're very good at definitely accruing more on the liability side of that. That's how I know I am on the liability side of the balance sheet than on the asset side. This, of course, just serves more and more to drain both our finances and our only truly limited resource, as I keep reiterating, time. And I think the Welsh poet William Henry Davies observed this condition over a century ago, the famous vagabond and kind of tramp, W.H. Davies. And he said it beautifully. Yeah. What is this life? If full of care, we have no time to stand and stare. So away from the poetry and onto the two principles I alluded to earlier for maximum achievement. How can we achieve more while giving away less of our precious time? So, and in my experience, and indeed in others, effectively leveraging our time requires applying two principles in parallel, in tandem: Pareto's law and Parkinson's law. So Pareto's law we'll go into first. So Vilfredo Pareto, bit of a mouthful, he stated that 20% of our time, energy, and effort generates 80% of the results. So Vilfredo Pareto's first observed this principle in economics during the late 19th century, noting that 80% of wealth was distributed amongst only 20% of Italy's population. And this 80-20 relationship has since been recognized as nearly universal. So 80% of companies' profits often come from just 20% of clients, and 80% of sales come from 20% of products, 80% of happiness comes from 20% of relationships. And I'm sure you can think of many, if you think hard about it, many examples of where this can apply to your own life and your own businesses, your own experiences. Parkinson's law, introduced by Cyril Parkinson, state that work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. So tasks take basically as long as we say they will, and as long as we allow them to take. Now, I'm sure you've got plenty of experience of doing this within mainly probably your working lives, where you've had that final hour of productivity where you know you've got to go and do the nursery pickup, or you've got to go and make that school run, or you've got to get the dinner on for the kids. Perhaps I'm relating too closely to home there, but that last hour, that golden hour, is often incredibly productive. And Elon Musk, of course, is a great contemporary proponent of Parkinson's law. So if you read, and I'll put the link in the comments, and I'll put all the citations here, in the comments, in the footnotes of this podcast. If you read Walter Isaacson's biography of Musk, you'll learn all about his surges. So these are effectively events that he's conjured up from no real great excuse, fabricated effectively. Things like getting a rocket booster stacked within 48 hours, or stacked by sunrise, or tear down a data center, as was the case, perhaps slightly unfortunately, with Twitter, when he bought that. And I thought this is going to be this is a great tool and something we can learn from if you are, as we should be, in the industry of just retaining that kind of half of a 1% of any talent within your particular field. Then I think surges are all something, and Parkinson's law, something we can look to utilize and profit from. So in the practical application, in terms of on a day-to-day basis, applying these principles requires very deliberate thought. The inspiration for this column, Richard Koch and his work on the 80-20 principle. So he's the contemporary kind of proponent, as I say, of this Vilfredo Pareto's original work. He's got a fantastic quote where he says that action drives out thought. Now, probably apocryphal that me attributing that to Richard. I'm sure that's been repeated throughout the centuries, but it's something always to keep in the back of your mind. When busyness creeps in, action drives out thought, and thought is what is needed to effectively, and peace basically, apply these principles. So applying these principles requires a deliberate thought and time spent planning. The goal to identify the two most important actions that will aid is to, in this scenario, identify every day or every week, or however you want to plan it, the two most important actions that will generate 80% of your desired results. Then you've got to set very strict deadlines for their completion. So you've got to be smart about it, to use that acronym. Very time limited, realistic. So don't set the two most important tasks you want to complete this month. Set them the two most important tasks that you've got to get done today, and perhaps thinking about what would happen if you didn't complete that task today. And looking at the downside is sometimes a good trick for finding the things that you really do need to get done today, because it is often difficult to to really choose between what would appear to be a number of very urgent and important top left box, if we think of the Eisenhower matrix tasks. So we identify these critical actions. You ask yourself, as I say, what would happen if certain tasks didn't get done? You choose actions that, of course, will need to align with your natural strengths. So again, this is coming back to your 20% spike. So you need to know thyself and set appropriate tight deadlines. Don't wait till Friday to tackle Monday's priorities. Now, personally speaking, my critical tasks are often either social, creative, or analytical, as they sit personally within my own 20% spike, what I tend to be better at than some other people, they'll say, not all, but some. But everything else is definitely better delegated. And it's only actually since I became a father over a decade ago now that I've truly appreciated time's real finite value. And I think that's hopefully probably something that will resonate with a lot of other parents that are listening to the podcast. This perspective shift, combined with applying Pareto's law and Parkinson's law, has definitely helped me filter noise and focus on what matters most. So for me, that's being present in the moment with my family and generating income in the most efficient way possible. And that result is, of course, more income and more time for the relationships that matter the most. So if spending time on what's truly important to you sounds like that appeals, then I really do recommend exploring the inspiration for this column, which was, as I say, Richard Koch's 80-20 principle. The audiobook is fantastic. It goes into a lot of detail on the principle, on the background, on Vilfredo Pareto, and Richard himself, in a rather kind of cut glass English accent, reads it to you. And it's got some cheesy 80 music going along in the background, some keyboards or something going along. One that I have listened to on repeat over the years, and Richard was kind enough to get back to me on email, endorsing this column that I wrote, as I say, about a year ago now, or over a year ago now, as I speak to you in June of 2026. So I hope you've enjoyed that. Please do let me know in the comments your experience of applying the 80-20 principle or Parkinson's law for maximum productivity, maximum results. As I said earlier, I think this really does distill the essence of progress and how we can make much more progress with much less. The absolute essence of what I've called this podcast. So profit insights. So I hope this was a good insight for you, and look forward to hearing from you, as I say, in the comments. See you next week.